Good evening, everyone. I'm Shannon Rutherford, the town planner for Farmington. This is the Town Plan and Zoning Commission. We will start with a roll call. Matthew Bandel.
Here.
David St. Germain.
Here.
Liz Sanford.
Here.
Chair Scott Halstead.
Here.
And I will note for the record that full members Robert Canto and Rogia Afshar are absent. Alternates Bruce Polsky.
Here.
Michael Tucci.
Here.
And I'll note for the record, Peter Zarella is absent. Mr. Chair, it's all yours. Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. So a few business items to clear up before we get started. First, welcome everybody to the May, I don't even know what day today is, May 28th. That's not a good start, is it? May 28th Town Plan Zoning Commission meeting. We've got two absent commissioners. So Bruce, would you be willing to fill in for Bob Canto?
I would.
And Mike for Rosia, please?
Yes.
Great, thank you. If you're here for public hearing, I believe it's item number 2. That is going to be continued. So that is not going to be heard tonight. It'll be continued to the June 9th meeting. And I think that's all of the sort of administrative. Liz, if you want to read the legal notice for us, please.
Okay. Notice is hereby given that the Town Plan and Zoning Commission will hold a hybrid in-person and online public hearing on May 28th, 2025 at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers on the following applications. Miraj and Jennifer Gupta application for special permit and site plan review for detached accessory structure in excess of expanded home limits of 3,200 square feet total area and work in the flood protection or FP zone at 70 Wood Pond Road in an R20 zone. Interested parties are encouraged to participate in this hybrid public hearing. Participation in person is at 1 Monteith Drive, Town Hall, Town Council Chambers, or online participation is via the link to the meeting on the Town of Farmington's website. A copy of this proposal is also available online or by calling the Planning Department at Farmington Town Hall. Dated at Farmington, Connecticut, the 7th day of May, 2025.
Thank you.
Getting a funky little,
You're getting
a
a buzz.
as I speak, I get like a, I don't know, maybe it's this, sounds like the speakers. I don't know. If it's just me, I'm fine. Is anybody else here?
I am not catching it anywhere else.
Okay, that's good. As long as it's not showing up on the recording. I didn't want it to mess things up. Okay.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
not catching it anywhere else. If it really becomes troublesome, let me know and we'll see if
I
we
don't
can
think so.
adjust.
I'll keep my opinions.
Thanks, Liz. Appreciate it. All right, we've got a few new business items, starting with Paula Feng, sign application for property at 1031 Farmington Ave.
Paula, have you called in online?
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Oh, perfect. Great. If you will go ahead, we'll need your full name and address and then an explanation of the request. Your
Okay.
sign for the commission.
My name is Paula Feng. I'm an ophthalmologist. I specialize in cataract and cornea surgery and comprehensive ophthalmology. My family and I were residents of Farmington, and my kids attend the schools here. We love living here and being part of this wonderful community. Thank you for inviting me to present to your distinguished committee today. I am opening up my own solo practice at the address of 1031 Farmington Avenue. It's part of the Round Hill Square complex. And as you can see, my building is all the way in the back of it, not visible from Route 4 at all, more than 150 feet away from the property line. I am proposing to install 3 signs. Many of my patients are vision impaired and elderly, and I can imagine may find this navigation to my office a little bit confusing. So the goal is to help them identify where the office is. Sign A will be on the northeastern face of the building and will have my name on it. And this is where this is what it looks like. And a drawing to scale. It meets all of the building area and length requirements. I reviewed them with Shannon. The entire face of that northeastern aspect of the building is occupied by only me, as you can see. And then along the walkway to the building, we'll have sign B, which will be about 6 square feet, so 1.5 feet by 4 feet, maybe even smaller, in proportion to match an existing sign for the Center for Work Stress Reduction. As you can see, it'll be similar to the existing sign and just visible on the walkway. And the third sign we're proposing is just a guidepost along that long driveway, so that people realize that 1031 is towards the back. I welcome any questions, feedback, or suggestions.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank
I'll turn over to the commissioners for questions. Matt, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Liz,
No questions. Thanks for the very thorough presentation.
Dave,
No questions. Thanks.
Bruce.
Dr. Fang, thank you for the presentation. No questions.
No questions. I think the signs will be helpful.
All right, very good. So can we get a motion in a second?
I would like to make a motion to approve the sign application by Paula Fang for property located at 1031 Farmington Avenue, AKA 1027 Farmington Avenue, building 1031 BR zone.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Best of luck.
Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 2, Paradigm Communities sign application for property at 5 Spring Lane.
Good evening, Commission. Thank you for having me this evening and to listen to our proposal for our signs. My name is Brian Lemire. I'm the Senior Director of Operations for Paradigm Communities. We own and manage the Croft Farmington, used to be called Centennial Inn, that is located on the corner of Spring Lane and Route 6. And this evening, I'd like to talk about the proposal for some sign upgrades, and the main monument sign is actual replacement. We'll start there with the replacement sign, which is located on Spring Lane. That is the entrance of the community that the sign is next to. And I believe the total square feet of the sign panel itself is 12.6, I believe it was. And it replaces an existing sign that's there. The width of the sign at its greatest point is 6 feet and height is 4 feet. But the panels, as you can see, are quite a bit less than that. And those are the drawings, obviously, that show the specifics, the dimensions, and all that good stuff. Next, we have the sign panels, which are affixed to the existing structures. Those were not replaced. We did paint them to brighten them up, and those panels replace what was there previously, just obviously with the new name, the Croft Farmington. And those, I need to pull up my notes, but those are, I'm sorry, give me a second here. Those panels, I believe, are around 16.25 square feet each. And that's just a rendering of what the main monument sign would look like with landscaping. I'll open it to any questions, comments, concerns.
Okay, thank you. Matt, any questions?
Just confirmation, there is no change to the existing illumination?
Not as of right now. No, we're using the, what's existing.
Okay, thank you.
Liz?
No further questions. Thanks for the very good presentation, and I like the look of the sign.
Thank you.
No questions. Thank you.
Bruce?
No questions. Thank you.
And Mike?
No questions.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. Is it either? Seems pretty straightforward. I agree. I like the sign look. Can we get a motion in a second, please?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to approve the sign application by Paradigm Communities for property located at 5 Spring Lane, RDM zone.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Best of luck.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
All right, item number 3, Legacy Church Inc. Application to modify existing special permit.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Reeve. I'm an attorney with Scully Nixon Reeve at 79 Main Street in Unionville, and I represent Legacy Church, which is the owner and the applicant on this application. With me to answer any questions you might have are Lauren Wood, who's the Executive Ministry Director, and Patty Schmid will be the preschool director. And I think Pastor Eric Peoples might be available on Zoom as well if you have questions. So Legacy Church is located at 15 Executive Drive. You might remember it as the Malibu Fitness Facility. They were before you back in 2022 and received a special permit to convert the gym to a church use. And after that approval was granted, they purchased the building and they've been operating their church out of that facility for coming up on 3 years now. The church has recently identified a need in the community, and that is for additional preschool opportunities for young families. If you see in the paper, there's quite a bit of news lately about difficulty in finding childcare, and that's only going to get worse because we have a new state regulation coming in this fall, that pushes back the age when children can go to kindergarten. So you're going to have more children competing for fewer spots. So Legacy is proposing to operate a state licensed preschool facility there 5 mornings a week, mornings only, not in the afternoon. And there will be 3-year-old children on the site 2 mornings a week, and 4-year-old children 3 mornings a week. We're going to utilize 2 classrooms in the existing building, and Shannon can show you about where those are located right there. Yep. There'll be 20 children in each classroom at a time, so there will be a total of 40 students on site every morning. Other than the church staff, there are no other uses in the building at this time of day. So we believe the existing 125 or so parking spaces are going to be more than sufficient to accommodate the children who are being dropped off and picked up, along with the 7 staff members that will be associated with the preschool. In addition to the 2 classrooms, the students will also have access to a outdoor play area. And if you scroll down, Shannon, there's a sketch that the contractor provided us with. It'll show you where the play area is going to be located. In the upper left-hand corner. And that's actually a paved area right now. That's where the dumpster is. And the dumpster is going to get moved to the east, down on that drawing, to a new location, also on a paved area. The surface of the play area will be something that's called playground fiber, which I'm told is a very soft kind of wood chip. You may have been on it. It's spongy when you walk on it to prevent injuries. And that's a water permeable surface. So as a result of this, we're actually going to be decreasing our impervious coverage on the site by a little bit by converting that dumpster area to a play area. There's a narrative that's attached to the application that Patty put together, and Shannon also did a really good job of summarizing the narrative in her agenda review. So there's not really much more that I can say about it. We think this additional use is compatible with the existing church use. It's consistent with that use. It's consistent with other similar uses in Farmington. We've had a nursery school in town that's utilized a church facility for a great many years. And given that we have more than adequate parking, limited hours of operation, we don't think this is going to place any undue stress on the site or on the neighborhood or on the infrastructure associated with the site. So we'd ask for your approval of these changes to the special permit and site plan, and we're happy to take any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Matt, any questions?
Yeah, and I apologize if I missed it in the application, but there is currently a screen and gate around the dumpster.
Yes.
Is that going to be moved when you relocate the dumpster?
Yeah, it is. And thank you for pointing that out. The new dumpster will be screened and gated, as will the play area. I think that's a state regulation. It's got to be fenced in. So
Okay.
that's, yep,
Yeah, thank you.
you're welcome.
What's that?
Okay, Liz?
Just a quick question. In terms of moving the kids from the classrooms to
Yeah.
the playground, I'm assuming you're going to cut through the building and then there's an egress point back there on that side of the building. Okay, I thought so. I just wanted to
Yep.
clarify. Okay, no, I think it's great. And yes, there is a need for preschool slots, definitely.
Yeah, no, this looks good. I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick one, just past the play area is one of the soccer fields.
Right.
And does it have high enough fence to protect the toddlers? Because that ball can be pretty hard at sometimes. Is there any potential issue there?
I wouldn't think there'd be a lot of soccer field activity at 9 to 12 on a weekday morning. Yeah, that's more afternoons and weekends. And is the field directly adjacent to the play area? My sense is maybe it's a little further
There's
back.
parking, so there's parking to the east.
East, yeah.
Yeah, anyway, there's no north arrow on this. So there's parking, I'm gonna say plant to the top of the plan. And then there's the detention basin, there's fields over to the left edge of the plan, but there's
Yeah.
the detention basins in between. I can bring it up on an aerial if we need to.
Yeah, it was hard to tell from the aerial. So there's the retention basin probably gives you the gap you would,
It's a big,
you would need. And
too. Yeah,
as he said, there's probably not likely to be a whole lot of activity at the time
Time of day. Yeah.
when the kids are out there. So I think it's not an issue. No further questions then.
okay, thank you.
I'm happy this is coming to town too. The only question I have, sorry if I missed this in the review, is are the classrooms clearly identified in case we had like a peanut butter allergy for EMS to get there? Yes. Okay,
They are.
perfect. No further questions.
Shannon, did you want to show the GIS? Looked like
Oh,
you
I
had it up for
just had
some.
Just did.
Sorry.
Oh,
Up for like, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So here's the building, the playground. So north is straight up on the screen.
Yep.
There's the subject building. The playground will be located here. So the area where the playground is actually mostly grass area,
Yep.
small area that is currently dumpster. I believe the access is going to be through this door at the rear. Use this existing sidewalk to access the playground area. And then to the south is simply the access drive and overflow parking for FSA.
mhm.
Near a soccer field is the detention basin is in between. And then the new dumpster is going here in the northeast corner.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think it all makes sense. I think the timing and everything stated makes a lot of sense. So thank you again for the presentation.
Thank
If have any
you all.
questions. Can we get a motion in a second?
I would like to make a motion to approve the application by Legacy Church Incorporated to modify the existing special permit for church use to include preschool use and site plan review at 15 Executive Drive, C1 zone.
Second.
Any discussion necessary? Everybody's good to vote? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Yes, good luck.
Thank you. Oh, we got a low chair.
I thought Lance was sinking. I fell asleep.
All right, we're going to move on to our public hearings now. We've got a couple of public hearings tonight. Just a few sort of, I don't know if I'd say ground rules, but just a little on the process. It'll look similar to what we do with new business. So we'll have the applicant present, commissioners will ask questions. We'll give the applicant an opportunity to respond, and then we'll open up to the public first in the room and then online. For any public comment, we ask that you just try to keep it within 5 minutes, just for the sake of everybody's time in the room, including the commissions. We really do value public comment and want to hear from the public. We just want to be as efficient as we can on that. So with all that being said, we'll jump right into public hearing number 1, Neeraj and Jennifer Gupta. Come on up.
How are you? Thank you for having us. My name is Neeraj Gupta. This is my wife, Jennifer Gupta. We're happy residents in the town of Farmington. We live at 70 Wood Pond Road. And obviously our children go to this school. So we're here, we are applying for an accessory structure that is a 2-car garage that's located at the rear of our property. And I think Shannon has it depicted on the site plan right here.
It is for an accessory structure. It is in all of the dimensions and setbacks that are dictated by the town of Farmington. However, the home itself exceeded the size a lot. I don't know what the term is, but it was exceeded the square footage. So when we did the building, it was an abandoned home. We fixed it up and we built onto it. Back in 2020, we finished it. Through that process, it had to be approved for the size. And obviously the house itself was over the size, and hence this accessory structure is therefore added to that. And therefore that is over the size.
And then as you can see the elevation, it's basically a 2-car garage. And we have a pool house above it, or a room above it. And we think it looks nice and it's located, so I don't have much more.
The home itself, again, we didn't tear down. We've lived there since 2020, and it's shocking how many homes have been demolished and have been rebuilt. But as you can see, the house is crooked on a straight lot, so we've had to kind of work our way around things. But we, like I said, did all the setbacks. We located it behind the rear wall, and it is it's a small 2-car garage. It's about as small as you can make for a 2-car garage, and it is within the size limits of the detached garage.
Anything else? Just I don't want to cut you off.
No, I think really, if you have
it's
questions,
Okay,
we'll-
fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Matt, any questions?
Yeah,
It's
there's,
tough to be first, I know.
yeah, sometimes it's good. Maybe this is better for Shannon. I'm just looking at the floodway and FEMA zones and just want to better understand that. So that's I guess the diagonal striped lines that it's encroaching upon.
Yes, correct.
And one of the conditions proposed was to move the proposed garage out of the floodway and FEMA zone.
Correct. So I've explained to the Guptas that there are 2 options. The first, they can choose to pursue with their licensed surveyor and apply to FEMA for what is referred to as a letter of map revision or a letter of map amendment to the FEMA map. And then the surveyor is required to certify elevations. All the flood zones are based on elevation.
Hmm.
So we'll need to certify that the building is actually at a higher elevation. The topographic elevation on the property is higher than what that flood elevation is, but the surveyor would need to do that. Assuming they're successful with that, then that letter of map revision or amendment officially modifies the FEMA map, and the structure could be built then as presented, assuming they are successful. If they are not, then the structure has to be moved.
So they need to either move the structure or go through the FEMA approval process.
Correct. And that would, we would not sign off on a building permit until we had either proof of a successful map amendment or or the structure moved.
Okay.
So there'd be no building permit issued. So this could be a condition. All the items mentioned
Mhm.
could be a condition if the commission so desired.
Have you read the conditions? and are you
Yes, ma'am. Yep. So we are in the process. The surveying company that we engaged for our survey, Martin Surveying Associates, they're currently applying for the FEMA, the letter of amendment. On his survey, the floodplain is at 170 feet. And then our lowest part of the proposed structure is, the lowest part is at 172 feet. So it is currently above, out of the floodway. So talking to Mr. Bruce Sear, he recommended to contact the surveying company. And then he said it's a very common thing. These maps are done X, Y, Z whenever they were done. And ultimately they go for we do a letter map amendment. And then ultimately he already has the measurements. So they are doing that application process right now, or have applied for that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Liz?
Excuse me. Are you replacing the existing garage or is there not a garage? That's, I'm just.
No, the current, we have a 2-car garage. This is an accessory structure that's gonna go to the back.
Okay. My fellow commissioner found a street view for me. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. And then the other question about in terms of how the drainage is getting manipulated and everything
Yep.
that's revised, is that?
Yep, so Shannon, if you're able to go towards the bottom of this site plan. So there should be, yep, there's a thing called rational peak discharge, this table. So then that shows the volume of water on the surface area of our new driveway. And then Shannon, if you go back up the driveway and if you zoom in front of the garage, everything is angled and pitched. There's slotted drain system that'll be put in. And so meaning all that water then will go into there, and then it comes around a French drain system and it goes into the rock pit that can handle that load.
Sorry,
Um,
I apologize. It's on silence, but apparently the alarm doesn't silence. Pardon me.
So yeah, so that water has been mitigated by the engineer.
Okay, I think those are my questions. Thank you.
Hi, I walk by your house almost every day. Guys, I've got a question. I guess the driveway seems awfully close to that fence, and there's a lot of trees on that side there. So I'm thinking about the driveway going in there. Is that the neighbor's fence? Is it your fence?
So the engineer, we put it 6 feet off of the fence,
Okay.
and everything on the driveway is pitched towards, so if you zoom in, it's pitched towards our land and then to the slotted drain.
Mhm.
No runoff will go there or go anywhere, even to the left of the garage. It will all get mitigated in underground. And if anything were to come out, it would come to the center of our yard.
I was more thinking of the space too. It seems like a very tight space to get cars through.
You're saying by the side of the house or?
Yeah, between that little room that sticks out.
Oh, it's definitely adequate space. The driveway is 12 feet wide. And then I believe the space between the fence and there is, I don't remember exactly, but I believe it's about 20 feet between our sunroom and the fence. So it has room for about 4 or 5 feet of bedding on each side. I think if we zoom in, you'll be able to see. And the garage is 6 feet off of the.
All right, and somewhere I read you'd had a letter from the association saying they were in favor of this project. Is that right?
Yes, yep, we got the Lake Association was in favor, our neighborhood, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Wait, was that in our documents at all?
I've never seen
I
that. Yeah.
don't remember seeing it.
Okay.
I think it was with, when we went with the flood.
Inland wetlands.
Yeah, I don't remember their name.
Oh, yeah, the other
Inland
commission.
wetlands.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's there.
Basically what they say is, as long as you're following the town guidelines and you're following best practices to, protect the lake, which I believe the town is very, very much so protecting the waterways. So there hasn't been any issues.
That's why they, and also when we redid the home, the silt fencing, et cetera,
Bays.
Yeah.
which was part of the conditions.
All right, I've got no other questions. Thank you.
My question, I think Mr. St. Germain got most of them, but how many trees are you taking out? I just want to look at the
None.
photograph to do
Zero.
the driveway. It's none?
0 trees, yeah. There's no trees were taken out. The trees are on the other side of the fence, and then we have beautiful, massive tree that's by our soccer goal and stuff like that. But 0 trees are coming out.
Perfect. So that will all
We're just
still be
gonna
there.
add, planting around the garage and stuff like that. Yep.
Okay. Then no further questions for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Mike?
Hey, so hearing from Dave that your HOA is in favor, I'm assuming that you spoke to your neighbors. They're
Yeah,
with this, and you called it a pull house. So I'm assuming that you're not going to have people staying there long. And if you were, then the neighbors would know that you're using it as an ADU rather than just like a pull house. Okay.
No, it's just a changing area.
Shower.
That's all my questions.
You guys took all my questions. So Shannon, I'm having trouble picturing that on the GIS map. Can you sort of show where all this is going to be on the GIS just so we can, or try at least?
So I will try. House, so you've got the patio as a reference.
Okay.
Okay, patio and the bump out on
Yeah.
the house. All right, and we go back to the plan. Here's the same patio, so it's behind the patio.
Okay.
by, say roughly 20-ish feet.
Yeah.
And it's 6 feet off, so the 5-foot accessory structure setback is here. You can see that called out on the plan. The driveway widens out to 25 feet at the throat here at its widest point. I'm assuming to allow some backing in and out of the garage as
Yep.
needed. So spatially then, when you come back to the hang on. And unfortunately, I can't, if I zoom,
Yeah.
the aerial goes away, so I
It's
can't get in any
yeah.
tighter, unfortunately. So again, the patio, so you're looking
Like in there.
at this area here.
Okay.
The tree canopy that you're seeing it could be, part of it is shadow. It's with the aerial, so part of it could be just shadow of neighboring trees. So, but you're looking in this general area
Okay.
for the garage.
All right, that's helpful. Thanks, Shane.
Yes, sir.
That gives me some perspective. I don't think I have any other questions. Any other commissioners come up with?
I did have one. If they don't no longer call that a flood zone area and you've got to move it, do you have a plan for that?
I think we could scooch it forward, but we had left space for lawn vehicles, et cetera, to go between the patio and the garage.
Yeah.
So optimistically speaking, talking to the surveyor, talking to Bruce, it is out of the flood zone. So in theory, we'll hopefully it will be okay. FEMA does that now. Otherwise, we just have to scooch it around.
How far into the flood zone is it, Shannon? Do we know? Like, just even approximately?
So from a graphical standpoint, when you're, again, we zoom in. So you can see the hatch, this is the edge,
Just like the
right?
corner
So
there.
if you got 5 feet, you're like another 10. So at its widest point, approximately 10 to 15 feet in from
Mhm.
the proper to this edge here where the retaining wall is.
Yep.
Elevation wise, would agree with Mr. Gupta's statement that the base flood elevation is listed as 170 at this location. The existing contour grade adjacent is 172. They are
Mhm.
putting a retaining wall up to have this elevated so that it meets the grades for the
Mhm.
coming around the house.
Yep.
That slopes off where they're putting the garage at a natural topographic slope to the property. But at no point does the elevation get as low as the base flood elevation. So in theory, there should not be a question with the letter of map amendment, but
Okay.
that's a FEMA process and
Right.
FEMA's sole jurisdiction on that.
And the change to impermeable surface area.
So that's one of the things that we have commented on. So we would like these, again, if the commission chooses to specifically state that these comments are conditions to be met at the time we go through this with building permit. So this is supposed to address the roof water, but it's not clear exactly what that detail is. And how that's going to function based on the information that was provided. So there are follow-up questions in the agenda review that Bruce and I had looked at. So the roof, there's high point on the driveway. The high point of the driveway is about midpoint of the home on this side. The front half of the driveway drains back towards the home or towards Wood Pond and towards the front yard and should sheet flow out into the front yard for the most part. So this whole portion of the driveway's natural attenuation in the yard. And then the second half of the driveway does come into this trench drain and is piped around the back of the building along with the roof. And that was one of the comments the building officials indicated is they've got to be, the pipes at the back of the building have to be separate pipes. You can't mix the roof leaders in with the stormwater and the foundation drain or any drain that's needed for the retaining wall. So.
Okay, that's a lot of work.
And David, there's a table on the bottom again, and that was provided by the engineer, and that's the math for the discharge of all that water.
Correct. So that's a flow, but we need a volume. So the volume is what we're looking for, Mr. Gupta. So this refers to a flow.
Yeah.
And see a cubic feet per second. We're looking for a volume is what would need to be retained.
Yep.
Stored in that underground system.
Yep.
So we'll work through that at the time of building
Exactly, yeah, we
permit.
could-
That's the
exactly.
intent of the condition. So it hasn't quite met. But we have no reason to believe why it can't. And then there's also a comment that test pits need to be done because you can't put it in groundwater. So that might have to move uphill, come up higher, so that it's not in groundwater, because obviously it's not going to hold any storage volume if it's already in groundwater. So we can work through those. Again, that's why those were enumerated in the agenda review for you.
Anybody else? And just to confirm, you're amenable, there's 10 items listed in the agenda review.
Yeah, I think
You're
they're
you're
all
fine working with the town on
100%.
those.
The
Should we
towns are
approve this?
great, and I think they're all already solved and solvable.
Okay, just wanted to double check. All right. If the commissioners don't have any of the other questions, this is a public hearing, so we'll take some time to open it up to the public. If there's anybody in the room that'd like to speak for opposition to this application, come on up. Guessing not. Shannon, we have anybody online?
If anyone's called in online regarding the public hearing for 70 Wood Pond Road, please raise your hand. Using the feature in Zoom, you'll be acknowledged to address the commission. Again, if anyone's called in regarding the public hearing at 70 Wood Pond Road, please use the feature in Zoom to raise your hand. You'll be acknowledged to address the commission. Mr. Chair, there are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. All right, so any additional questions, commissioners, before we consider closing? Everybody okay to close the public hearing? All right, let's close the public hearing. Can we get a motion in a second, please?
I would like to make a motion to approve the application for special permit and site plan review by Neeraj and Jennifer Gupta for detached accessory structure in excess of expanded home limit of 3,200 square feet total area and work in the flood zone or flood protection zone FB at 70 Wood Pond Road, R20 zone, with conditions 1 through 10 of the agenda review.
Second.
Any discussion necessary? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Congratulations. Best of luck to you.
Good luck for your
Good luck with your project.
Yes.
All right, item number 2, as I mentioned at the beginning, is being continued, so we need to do a motion to continue the Richard Jones application to June 9th. Please, a motion in a second.
Like to make a motion to continue the application by Richard Jones for change of zone from CR to C1 posted in the town clerk's office for special permanent site plan to construct 3 contractor buildings, work within the flood perimeter overlay zone, waiver for impervious coverage, and waiver for interior landscaping located at lot 8556 New Britain Avenue, adjacent to 544 New Britain Avenue, with a recommended hearing date of 6/9/2025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thanks, everybody. All right, our third public hearing is Town Plan and Zoning Commission, the text amendment to zoning regulations. I know we started this one a couple meetings ago, Garrett. Part 2.
All right. Good evening, everyone. For the record, Garrett Daigle, Assistant Town Planner. So this is a continuation of the public hearing from April 28th for the proposal to amend the R12 zone to allow two-family dwellings with a larger minimum lot area. So the R12 zone currently allows a single 2-family dwelling on a lot containing a minimum of 12,000 square feet, which is also the minimum for a single family. The 2 families allowed by special permit. The proposed regulation would allow 2-family homes on a lot containing at least 36,000 square feet, so 3 times the minimum required. And that's exclusive of wetlands and slopes greater than 33%, which is net acres, which is what we use for most of our developments in town. Based on the conversation that we had at the last meeting, there were 3 items that were brought up. There was provision for a landscape buffer, which properties were in the historic district, and what other neighboring towns have for multifamily properties. So as the landscaping, we added clause C to the proposal that now says a landscape buffer shall be planted along the side and rear yard buffer when abutting a single family home and where required by the commission. The buffer shall include a mix of evergreen trees and shrubs at a rate of 2 trees per every 25 feet. The commission may consider existing landscaping as part of the required buffer. This was kind of, as opposed to requiring a minimum width, it seemed it was more advantageous because this regulation targets more, we'll call it historic existing lots. The lots might barely meet the minimum lot width. So if it was a little, we'll say vague, it's not saying it needs to be a 10-foot buffer on either side. If you've only got 75 feet, that now drops you down to 55 feet wide for your driveway and your building, everything like that. That seems a little tight on some of these properties that might be affected by the regulation. So we left it kind of vague, but it's at the commission's discretion as well for what you'd want in there. Next up, we hit, sorry, my documents are out of order. In the presentation, we've got the lots that are currently zoned, the R12 zone. So we've got some lots in Unionville along Plainville Avenue. We've got Garden Street in Farmington and some areas off of Scott Swamp, Junior Road and Harold Road. Again, this map shows all the lots that will be affected by this regulation. So these are the lots that have at least 36,000 square feet of land, excluding wetlands. Steep slopes I couldn't do in the GIS program. It'd be on a case-by-case basis that they'd have to do as part of the special permit process. They have to come in and show that they meet the lot area. Again, it further reduces, I think it was a total of 22 lots, with a few of them. I think there's 5 or 6 owned by Miss Porter's in the Farmington Center area. There's 3 in the Unionville section, and then a few on Scott Swamp and 1 on Newton Road. Moving on to the next point that we had discussed of wondering what properties were in the historic district. I've overlaid the Unionville and Farmington historic districts on this map. It ends up being 2 properties, one in the Farmington Historic District, which is the Miss Porter's campus, and one in the Unionville Historic District, which is 230 Main Street, which is privately owned. But those are the only 2 properties that are in the historic district. This is the list of the properties that we had shown at the last meeting. Again, I added a little call out next to the 2 properties. One's in Farmington, one's in Unionville, just so it's clear so you can assign which specific property it was and who the current owner is.
Okay, and then just to continue with some of the discussion that was in the agenda review, we also took a look at there's some rear properties. We talked about that some of this happened organically with the development of Farmington. And we talked about the 20, we've got some interesting lots here. This is at 20, 23, and 25 Main Street with multiple homes and buildings on one lot. Some owner occupied, some are not at that location. This is another example of a rear lot. There's shared driveway access in rear properties that this lot in particular, either lot actually would not be able to be built in this configuration under the current zoning regulation. We've got this one is, I believe this is 39 Main Street. And then I've got 13 Mountain Road and 7 and 11 Carrington Lane were just a few that I grabbed and picked out. There's probably others. Those were just ones that that were obvious and I was immediately familiar with. So most of these are owner occupied, like I said, except one over at that 21, 23, 25 Main Street. The other thing we did was take a look at some of the adjoining municipalities and their multifamily regulations. And so this is a Word document summary. And what I did was put it into a table for us so that it was a little easier to compare straight up. And then we did, probably the last column is the easiest. So the equivalent land area per unit. So for a 2-family, you would need twice this land area. So per unit, right? So each unit counting separately. So a 2-family would be, as you see here, 2 units, 15,000 square feet, or you break it down, it's 7,500 square feet per unit. And did that across the board for these municipalities that we were able to readily review. Again, not all of these are necessarily an apples to apples comparison, each municipality has kind of its own take and unique wording as to how they get to allowing a multifamily unit, whether that's 2, 3, 4 or more units on a property. But when you look at this comparatively, our R12 zone is 12,000 square feet. So it's 2 units. We can have a 2-family on 12,000 square feet. So it's 6,000 square feet per unit. The proposal that's before that we're discussing would allow 4 units, but on 36,000 square feet. So it'd be 9,000 square feet per unit from a land area. And then comparatively, our own R9 zone, our 2, 3, and 4 family regulation and the lot areas, so 2, 3, and 4 units in the minimum lot areas average out to 6,000 square feet per unit on those. So that's the additional information that Garrett and I pulled together. Open to conversations. It is obviously it's part of a public hearing, so we can see obviously if there's any public comment on this. But ultimately, this is what the commission, if they think it's an appropriate regulation. And I'll be honest, if it's not, we'll go through the conversation of everything. But if it's not something that you folks are ready for, or we think that this is an appropriate mechanism, then we can pull back and discuss other opportunities or other ways to go about this and just take a different direction then. But we'll let this play out and see where the conversation goes.
Thank you for the additional research and
Absolutely.
information, answering our questions. Much appreciated as always. Matt, questions for Shannon or Garrett?
Shannon actually answered
Yeah.
my main question about this square feet per unit. So no, I'm all set.
Nothing is coming up right now. I answered. I like the table. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Dave?
I'm gonna say the same thing as Liz.
I think the information is very good. Are we able as a commission to grant a special permit with the current R12 to allow two units? So
Without a text amendment, you're saying?
without the
No,
text
with a
amendment?
2-family. So the current R12 allows 2-family, but with as a special permit use. The only thing allowed in Farmington as of right is a 1-family home. Period. So your subdivisions come in initially, right, as a public hearing. And then once the subdivision is approved, those 1-family homes, those lots come in and they just go. The only thing, if it's a multi-family home, two family in the R12, 2, 3, or 4 in the R9, in addition to having gone through subdivision approval, if somebody then has an R12 lot that they want to put a 2-family home on rather than a 1-family home, they are required to get a special permit with the commission.
Got it. So ultimately, there's no way to do it and keep it in R12. You would either have to recharacterize it or subdivide it. Correct?
So if you want to put 2-family homes, correct.
You would
two
have to
two-family-
subdivide the
You would
lot.
have to either subdivide the lot or change the zone, but that, again, you're looking then at spot zoning. You could go to an R9 zone, but that only makes sense if you're contiguous to other R9 parcels,
Right.
right?
Right.
So you don't want to have a spot, you're not going to just plop an R9 in the middle of R12 and R20.
Right. Yeah. The reason I'm asking the questions is I want to understand what the envelope we're working with is, with respect to this and the need for the amendment, and what it buys us. So that's why
Sure.
I've been.
So it does, and it's an opportunity to allow some additional multifamily homes that on lots that are not, a lot of these lots in these areas that Garrett, if we go back to the presentation, a lot of these lots are not traditional shape for a variety of reasons, being in
Historical.
Unionville Center and Farmington Center, right? So a lot of them are long, narrow, kind of odd shaped lots that don't lend themselves to either subdivision, a traditional subdivision, or our interior lot regulation. And the interior lot regulation is rather, it's very mathematical. We got at that for this discussion purpose. So a lot of these lots will not fit into either a subdivision or a interior lot regulation. So this was a mechanism to allow a modest increase in housing density without necessarily just opening the floodgates per se. So, and it would still be a special permit requirement. To the chair's point that he mentioned last time, that once it's a special permit use, if they're meeting the special permit standards, there's less of an opportunity for the commission to have reason for a denial if the standards are being met, right? And you're hard pressed to say one more single family or even two family home is going to be such a traffic detriment that you can't, it can't be built, or that there's so much stormwater runoff that it can't appropriately be mitigated. So it'd be more challenging to, on the commission side, to deny an application once this regulation is put forth. It's not impossible, but I think it would be more challenging.
Thank you. That clicked a few things into place for me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Bruce. Good questions. Mike?
So my biggest concern is what you just addressed at the end, is just how we're dealing with 21 parcels or whatever it is in the eventuality of passing in. There may be an issue, especially by the neighbors or whatever.
Mhm.
As a body, we would represent their interests for the most part. So the ones that put us here. So, yeah,
The same can be said with the ADU regulation that we
Right.
put in place too, right? So this is kind of that next step up from the ADU.
you know,
And the only other thing we could think of, I mean, really, this is a next step up from the ADU. And then the next step up from this, if this goes well, would be to introduce in the R20 zone, do we allow a two-family? Because right now, the only zones that allow two-family are the R12 and the R9 zone. R20 and above, single family only. You could do an ADU, but single family. So the next step, if this was successful and we can manage it, okay, the next step would be to take a look and say, okay, do we start to open up two family on our 20 lots? And again, it'll be a special permit. And so things like screening and fencing and moderate, and we can take a look, are increased buffers required or increased setbacks required? But do you start to open up to that level to start to increase some of our housing density opportunity?
Right.
So this is kind of like incremental steps on how the commission can start to look at this from a housing density standpoint without going that 8-30G and that true affordable housing.
I agree for the most part. And I'm assuming not every parcel is going to seek this. move.
Correct.
Right.
Just similar to what we've had with the ADU. So we put that reg in place and I think we've had a handful of applications. Some that were by right, and then the handful that have come to you folks. So it's been pretty limited with the regulation went in place. And
I'm assuming the Porter's parcels, if they were to choose to build something, they would be adjacent to other Porters, and that would be probably for the girls to board if they choose.
so the one for some of the Porter's parcels were it was actually the main campus.
Mhm.
And I think the one that's big enough is just the main campus. Is that correct, Garrett? I'm running-
I believe,
So this is the main.
yeah, the main
this is-
campus and the pool.
In the pool. So this is the main campus. So in Porter's, and if they were doing a two-family, it would be perhaps for their teachers and in teacher housing. Any of their other housing for the students, it's obviously, it falls into that school. We put it in under the school umbrella because it's a whole different, it's not a multifamily. It goes, and a lot of this predates, some of that predates the zoning with Porter's, and it was housing, and then they've changed it to classroom, they change it back to housing depending upon their
Yep.
their needs and fluctuation. So pretty much all of that goes in under a school umbrella, private school umbrella, whether they're using it for housing or for educational, true educational classroom purposes, because it's falling under that Porter's umbrella and being managed from that standpoint. Because we don't have, there isn't a separate school housing, right, dormitory, if you will. There isn't in our regulations, so.
So assuming this passes, like the body would, the person would, the applicant would come to this board still.
Mhm.
How would the driveways and stuff be figured out? Would they be shared? Like,
Yes, it'd be a shared driveway. Generally, the preference is to have one curb cut to reduce points of conflict. So it'd be a shared driveway. Given that these are existing homes as well, it's likely that the new building would be behind. So there's an existing driveway. It'd be a drive past. That'd be the building behind. And I think what we had discussed at the previous meeting was that that is preferred in terms of a maintenance and responsibility standpoint of having one shared driveway between either the whole, if it's an apartment, it's the property owner. If it's a condo, it's a condo association, as opposed to touching our interior lot regulation, which creates now a driveway with an easement or a shared driveway or separate driveways. And then that gets a little difficult. And we have had that issues with that in town with shared driveways, separate property owners. The point of this regulation is that it's one property owner, whether it's a single property owner or a condo association.
thank you. Yeah, that's all my questions for now.
Thanks, Mike. I don't think I have anything right now. Anybody else come up with?
One other thought to share. I'm kind of back and forth on this.
Yep.
On this issue. One reason to do this, I think, is given the current housing crisis that is out in the country at large, many people look at planning and zoning commissions like ourselves as one of the bad actors in this, with our bias towards single family homes. By doing this and allowing for more multi-family in Farmington, giving that possibility, we are showing ourselves to be a positive actor in this. I don't know how much weight or anything like that it would carry, but it is one of the reasons that makes sense to put this forward as well. Just a thought.
I agree 100%, but I see another negative on this side too, is just adding more landlords when smaller housing like this would be great for 20 somethings and under 30 to actually get in the market. And that's always locked out because we're building like that. But you can't change how things are.
Well, is maybe there's a way for us to do this that skews it towards the affordable range? Is there provisions that we can do to make that not a market thing, but your special permit is contingent on meeting affordable guidelines? Are we even interested in doing that if we can?
Would that be like a density bonus kind of thing, or is that the way it have to be framed?
So you could, so you're thinking, so typically what we look at with that is we're looking at the area median income. But then we'd have to figure out who's going to be responsible for monitoring the area, monitoring the tenants with a change in tenancy in the area median income. Does the owner do it and issue a report to town staff annually? And we put that as a condition that that has to be done annually. And at what AMI are we setting it at? Is it at 80, 100, or 120? So the build for CT, so now we're as this conversation starts to take on a different, another level, which isn't, that's fine. So, the build for CT program, and Garrett, correct me if I'm wrong, build for CT is a funding mechanism with CHFA that is allowing multifamily projects, and we're talking large multifamily projects like some of the ones that we've seen, right?
50
units.
minimum units.
So that their income, they can get additional funding or lending source through CHFA if they agree to set a certain percentage of their housing development as affordable, but it's more on the higher end of affordable, between 80 and 120 percent of the area median income, which we calculate the area median income each April. It fluctuates the exact date in April when those numbers are made available from Department of Housing. So we have those numbers because we need them anyhow when we're certifying sales at Snowberry and Cornerstone. The issue becomes is from a tenancy standpoint, when a tenant comes in, so if these are being rented, right? So the second housing unit, if it gets sold, are we saying at the sale price, the sale can be at market rate, but the tenancy is at area median income, and at what level? Or is the sale also going to be at area median income? And so there's multiple things to start to think about in it. And it's limited, so this is probably something that staff could oversee. I wouldn't want to oversee a 100 unit or multi, 120 or 200 unit complex. Because there are certifications, and I think we would, if we're not going to count it towards our affordable housing numbers, then we can take a rather streamlined approach to it, and more simplistic. But that certainly adds another layer, and there is additional documenting that's required.
Do we have a sense of, you might not be able to answer this, Garrett or Shannon, like what size homes would fit in the lots that we're talking about? Like, I'm thinking about Mike's point about, there's a lot of the housing that gets built now are these like 3,000 plus square foot. That's what builders want to build now, right? 20, maybe 2,500 is a better number. Like, it doesn't seem to me, just from the lots that we've been looking at, those are the kind of houses that are going to get dropped in these. It may still get at some of what you're mentioning without going as far as.
Well, yeah, you're
what
going to
Shane was
get
talking about.
so
Just
for a
another thought.
duplex, right, they're generally shaped a little different, right? So they're definitely more rectangular. You're going to get a 2 or 3, maybe even 2-story with a loft space.
Yeah.
And they're a longer rectangular because you've got that partition wall that's running down the center. So a duplex is just inherently set up different in order to create that different living space. And you're not getting a first floor master bedroom, right? And you're not getting a 4 or 5 bedroom house. You're getting a 2 or 3 bedroom house, or a 2 bedroom with a small office space. So that space is utilized completely different and more efficient and streamlined. And you have an eating kitchen in a living area. You're not getting a formal dining area. So that space inherently gets broken up different. So you may have a 3,000 square foot home broken up into 2 1,500 square foot units in order to get that space to work. And it's going to be more linear in nature in most cases.
Just again, wondering if that gets at some of what both of you were talking about without complicating the equation with AMIs and other affordable housing. I don't know, would create a niche maybe that we don't have. Just another thought.
I agree. I think it's extremely desirable with UConn being so close with Stanley, with Miss Porter right there for young professionals to be able to get in this area, especially with Unionville and the Miss Porter side of Main Street. Not so much Scott Swamp, I live close to that, but like the walkability and stuff to access the bike trail. These are great parts of Farmington that younger or older people retiring could really enjoy. But I'm not so sure that all the neighbors will appreciate having the density. So it's a tricky proposal we have in front of us.
Well, why don't we do this? Maybe we should open it to the public since it is a public hearing and hear what's out there and then come back to the discussion. Sound reasonable? All right, this is a public hearing. If there's anybody in the room that would like to speak for or against.
I got whatever you. You want circus clowns too?
Good evening. My name is William Galsky. I'm an attorney. I practice out of Plainville. And I was thinking when I came tonight, I came my first planning and zoning commission here 47 years ago. Believe it.
Wow.
I was 17 years old. And anyway, I'm here with Brad Finocchio. Brad owns a property on Garden Street. And we started looking at this opportunity probably about a year ago and came and met with the staff. And they were extremely generous with their time. We had three probably 1 hour meetings and then another short one last week to talk about this. And part of the reason was Mr. Finocchio has a good sized lot, an above average sized lot on Garden Street within the village. And the biggest thing in approaching this and looking at it was it's got to be able to conform, you know, and it's got to be able to match the neighborhood. I always look at who's coming to what when. And obviously, if you're going to be building in, you know, most of these properties that we see are all well developed. So it's not a new subdivision coming in, you know, so it's got to be compatible. And that was the number one thing we looked at and why we suggested, you know, the oversized, the extra land. And so you talked about a lot of things tonight. I don't want to belabor it, but a couple of things did come up in talking about the conformity. What we did is I want to show you some pictures of some other similar properties that are all existing that have extra lots, extra houses, if you will. And so let me hand it out. And these are going to conform with the slideshow. Excuse me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll take it. Extra.
Thank you. Do you need one, John? Do you want one or you're good? You got one? Okay.
So I think the biggest part of this that we looked at, and I know it was an issue that came up, was dealing with the driveways. And does, you know, do we have two lots, one behind the other, or do we go with all one lot with two buildings on one lot? And that's what the staff had advised. And so the issue with that is that obviously the front unit and the back unit would share the same driveway. And it took away some of the issues we had to do with frontage. So what I wanted to do is to show you the fact that this can work, and it does work in a lot of other parts of town. So the first picture we have here is up on Mountain Road, excuse me, just above Hilltop, and looking down a shared driveway, and that's your first picture there. You've got one house behind the other, and they share a driveway. And when you go by all these properties, you don't know where the property lines are, and you're going to see that they're crooked and they're all over the place. And a lot of the houses are non-conforming as far as building lines. But the regulation, I think, given the size and the fact that anything new has to meet the setbacks, will alleviate a lot of that. Second one, please. I'm going to go kind of quick with these. This is on Diamond Glen, and there are 4 units that actually share this driveway, and you don't see any of them. They're all in the back. 3 of the lots are improved. One of them is a vacant lot. Next one Shannon had mentioned earlier is on Carrington. And looking in, we've got a rear house. Okay. Again, It has no frontage. It shares the driveway with the house on the left, and you can see we got three houses really, really tight. And then that's part of the character of the village. And that's what we want to try to, that's the main thing I think you got to keep and maintain. The next one is again on Mountain Road. This is over by High Street. Property sits in the back. This is Mr. Bombera's house. Okay, and so the situation here, they have a long driveway to a rear lot without frontage. Next one is Garden Street. This is the Mr. Finocchio's property, and you have an idea here of the depth of the property. There's plenty of room with the driveway. On the left is where the Farmington Village condominiums are, right? So the high density in there. They've got a very massive shrub, shrubs that run the whole length of the property. That one got kind of mixed in there, but next one is just a little bit about 6 houses down on Garden Street. This is Dr. Januzzi's property, actually. And when you look in the back there, you see the garage, but what you don't see is a whole, about a 1,500 square foot single family home behind the front house. So the idea, let's see, one more over on Main Street. Oh, this is Brad's. Okay. This is the property next door to Mr. Finocchio's. Okay, just to the north, and they've got a building in the back. So this would be the neighbor essentially to where a proposed house would go. Okay, and they've got a garage back there. Several vehicles. This is the massive shrubbery, if you will, along the condominium side, on the southerly side of the property. And this is looking into the two backyards. Mr. Finocchio's property is on the right there. The neighbor to the south is on the left. And then this gives you a panoramic of the backyards of what they look like. So it's as you can see, quite a bit of land. A couple more really quick. Up on Main Street, you've got the newer house on the left that replaced the house that burnt down quite a few years ago. And if you look at the property lines on that, you can see how jagged they are. But there's another house behind that you don't see. So that was kind of the, we got one more.
One more.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah. and this is an interesting one. Property on the, you laughing?
Never.
Work with Shannon on this a lot. She
Yeah, we
was
went around.
Very generous with her time, but
I got a law degree on this one.
the two properties on the right are actually a condominium. The units are two separate houses. The property on the left has been there, lived there. He ended up buying it because it was dilapidated and he wanted to fix it up. So because it was next door to his property. So he bought it. He actually shares a driveway with the property in the back. The front house, that's a separate property, has its own driveway. So when the idea is when you go by, you don't know where the property lines are, but the idea is to make the buildings fit. Okay, and I think we can do that. Anymore? I think that's it.
That was the last one.
Yeah. So the idea is again, is probably, as Shannon had said, when you're designing a layout, is that you have the rear house behind the front house, so you don't necessarily see it, but you've got to meet all the setbacks. As far as the price goes, I think the way to deal that, a good way to deal with that, where you don't have to get into the monitoring, is to limit the number of bedrooms. And that also limits the number of cars that'll theoretically be there. I don't know if any of you remember, they did that with Devonwood, back when Devonwood was planned. Does anybody remember that? Back in the 80s, see, I'm too old.
I've heard stories of it.
There's a little section of Devonwood that's called Devonshire. And the idea was when it was built, the property values were obviously high and it was kind of starting a whole new level. So to make it affordable, they had a section over there where they could only have 2-bedroom houses. And it kind of got pushed in that people would put a den in that became a 3rd bedroom. But the idea was there. I mean, and so you could kind of do the same thing here, and that could be right into your, I think that was kind of the idea what we were coming from. And I don't know, but that's something you could adopt, and you could say, okay, you can't have any more than 2 bedrooms, and that's going to limit your traffic too. And it's going to obviously keep the prices down, and that's going to be compatible with that zone, with that R12 zone. So I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but the only other thing we had in there that we had talked about that you don't have is I had the rectangle. You had to have the minimum rectangle.
Mhm.
I don't know if you want to talk about that or not.
We can, I don't think I've got a graphic of it. but
No.
If you wanted to run through so that the.
So one other guidepost that we had, so that things wouldn't get funky, if you will, was that within the backyard where you're gonna do this, is you would have to have a rectangle that would be 100 feet by 200 feet. Okay, and that would ensure that you would have adequate setbacks without encroaching on your neighbors, and it would give you room for doing your buffers like they promoted. And some towns have that
Yes,
anyway.
yes. It avoids, so if you've got, you can't, it avoids having really crazy lot lines, right? That go jagged and all, so that you meet your lot area. But it's in such a convoluted manner that you can't get a functional rectangle.
You got a good one on Mountain Road. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. Pull it up or not, but there's one that looks like a snake.
Yeah, there's a
So,
few of them.
um,
Yes.
But again, I think the main thrust of this has to be compatibility.
Hmm.
And obviously by opening it up to a public hearing, it gets the neighbors the opportunity to speak and to be able to balance everybody's interests.
Yep.
So thank you for your time.
Thank
If have
you,
any
appreciate it.
questions.
Okay.
And again, thank you to the staff, very
Wonderful.
generous with their time, and obviously, even the work that was done tonight with that graph is not, it's not 5 minutes.
I think Mike has a question for you.
Yeah, so, well, forever, but, would there be, garages or would these be parking in the driveway?
There could be, if it fits.
Because-
It's obviously a nice amenity.
Mhm.
If you're looking to get to, if you're looking to appeal to a new family, right? And they want to be able to pull into the garage in the wintertime and not carry a baby out in the rain. So it would have to fit in with the design
That's what I'm
within
thinking
the area.
with like Garden Street and such, the plowing. If they're tenant situations without a garage, how does that, I don't live on Garden Street. I don't know how the plowing schedule would. You have to pull out the cars for street parking. Does it get kind of confusing like that? Do you know, Shannon?
You'd have, there's very limited, there is, on-street parking is permitted. Obviously, because Porter's does it all the time for
Yeah.
swimming and sporting and whatnot. So, yeah, it would be possible to, after our plows have gone through, temporarily move cars to the street, right? Because during a snowstorm, we've got a parking ban too, right? So that you're not parking on the street in the middle of a snowstorm. Or figure out a pull-off area, plow, push the cars to the other side temporarily, plow just within your own property. That would be for the, the landlord and tenants to figure out, and maximum number of vehicles permitted, et cetera. So,
Winters haven't been too bad lately.
no,
What's your feeling on climate change?
no, yeah.
Sorry to
so-
be silly.
So yeah, that, I think logistically that could work. There's probably other mechanisms to temporarily get around that to get a plowing done. Let's put that, if we get like a 30-inch snowstorm, people are generally kind of tolerant of a temporary, like, okay, we had to move the cars out in order to get the driveway plowed, and we'll put the cars back, as long as something's not being left out for an extended period, right? So it's been a long time since we've got a 30-inch
Yep. Yeah, it's true.
anything, so.
Let's not jinx it. Okay.
Gotcha.
That was my only,
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
I used to live in New Haven as a tenant.
Yep.
Yeah, parking bans were.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
So, and the only other thing, they did have a letter that was submitted in general support of a change to the regulation. It's the Anta Giovanni's at 15 Garden Street, writing today to express my full support for regulation changes that could potentially allow a second dwelling it specifically says 40 garden, but I'm assuming they're referring to this R12
Yeah.
amendment as written, so. but, um, So.
Yeah, we're still in the public hearing, right? So,
Quite a bit to the, yep. So there's, we can see if there's anybody, I didn't ask online. Would you like me to ask? So
yeah.
if anyone's called in online to offer comment on the R12 text amendment, please, there is a hand raised. Jay Longworth. Should be able to unmute your microphone.
Yes, hi, Jim Longworth here.
Name, address, please, for the record.
Hi, this is Jim Longworth, 36 Garden Street.
Okay.
I've got 4 bullet points written down here. I do not have an attorney representing me, so I'm going to try to work my way through this. First comment is Mr. Galsky's photo PowerPoint. Although, yes, it was representative of driveways in the area, I'd like to point out that the vast majority of those are owner-occupied dwellings. They do not represent the situation which I'm going to be confronted with, which is a remote landlord situation and potentially having 4 tenants whom I'm not familiar with. They're not going to be my long-term neighbors, which frankly, I'm a little uncomfortable with. So that's, the current owner has reached out to me and appears to want to work with me, but I don't know how long he's going to own that property. And that's not what I purchased this property for. And I love this area and I want to stay here. And someone had made the comment on the commission that they didn't know how neighbors would feel about it. And well, I am that neighbor. I'm semi-retired and I like my neighbors. I like to walk the area and I like to know the people who live here. And the idea of having rental property is a little discomforting. And I don't know what else to say about it. It's not what I expected of the village. It's disappointing. I think, frankly, I think if we could go back in time, I don't think the commission would have approved the condos that are adjacent to the property that we're talking about. Because it doesn't fit in the area. And I would hope that the commission wouldn't make a mistake like that again. So that's the second bullet point. I can't help but wonder, you talk about affordable housing, and I wonder what this incentive is to make this change for the town. We're kidding ourselves if you think that this is going to contribute to quote unquote affordable housing within the town of Farmington. These are not going to be inexpensive rental properties. I have no idea what this landlord is going to charge for this rental property, but I can assure you it is not going to be inexpensive. It may be considered affordable for some people, maybe doctors from Yukon, but I would venture to guess that it's not considered affordable to most people. And Shannon, I think your table was great. I think it went a long way to compare the properties within Farmington that are affected by this zoning change with adjacent towns. And clearly we're talking about a change that would increase the density with the surrounding towns. And again, I don't see the incentive. I haven't been convinced that this is the right thing to do. And I'll be watching this closely. And that's all.
Thank you very much.
Okay, has anyone else called in that would like to offer comment regarding the R12 text amendment that is currently being discussed? Mr. Chair, there are no other hands raised at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
If there's anyone else in the chamber?
Yeah,
that wants
is there anybody else in the room that would like to speak for or against? Just to double check, okay. Any questions for Garrett? Otherwise, we can continue the discussion. All right, maybe the place to start is to do kind of a check, commissioner by commissioner check-in, just to see where we're at. I'm looking right at you, Matt.
Feel it. Feel it. Yeah.
The eyes
Last
boring
name is
through
Reed.
So there's obviously something to be said about increasing supply of housing. And this is a nice step, a moderate step towards doing that. I feel it's minimal in impact. I don't see this as being a game changer. Right. There will be people that are affected directly, but generally speaking, it's, you know, what, 20% in this quarters, right? And a few other parcels included. I think it makes sense. I am interested in pursuing, or at least looking at the 2-bedroom, you know, stipulation. I do think that's a novel way to, you know, limit, you know, so we don't get these massive houses that would, you know, just fit there. And I do agree with Mr. Longwood. These are not affordable. This is not going to be an affordable play, but it is increasing the supply, which should, if it's increased everywhere, it should decrease prices, but we'll see if that ever happens. But yeah, I'm positive.
Thanks, Matt.
I'm agreeing with a lot of what you have to say, Matt. I find this as a nice incremental step. We spent all that time analyzing and looking at and assessing and trying to figure out what to do about affordable housing. And will this be a make or break, change everything, get us over that 10% hump where we never have to look back? No, it is not. But also as the parent of 20 somethings who ultimately would like to, I think, come back and live in this town, they got to find a place. And, you know, it would be, I see it as a nice step. And also the people I work with all these young teachers, and they are not finding places in Farmington. They're usually, most of them are ending up in Burlington. So I find the village I live in the village. I find it a unique environment. I am constantly intrigued by how did that house get back there, and then thinking about the history and thinking about the evolving needs that the housing came from. So is this a panacea that will solve all our problems? No, but I'm generally positive. I do also agree with the whole limit to a 2-bedroom size. I think that seems to be a good stop gap. So that's my feelings.
Thanks, Liz.
Yeah, I think the same thing about the 2-bedroom rather than going the other way of trying to prove affordability, putting more work on you, picturing Port Lance having to check out everybody. It's yeah, I think it's a nice step. I understand, you know, people are concerned about density and having neighbors that they don't necessarily know, but we're all kind of strangers, so we get to know each other. And talking about placement, there may be things that happen that with screening or whatever that may and these are people who, you know, we guess these are working people who are going to be in and out. I don't know, I think it's positive. At first I was not convinced. I was kind of thinking no, but this conversation just helped me along.
Thanks, Dave. Bruce?
I think, you know, as we go down the line, I think I would count myself in general agreement, you know, with my fellow commissioners so far. And again, it has a limited impact. It's not going to move the dials for us, but I think it could be a positive thing to go ahead and do. I'd like to make sure we do it carefully. I like the idea of not putting burden on staff, but those limits. So again, I'm also aligned with the 2-bedroom idea. I think that has a lot of merit. Kind of splits the hair a little bit for what we're trying to achieve. I'm comfortable if we, you know, noodle on it a bit as well too. You know, I don't feel that there's a burning need to do something urgently. So if we wanted to think about this, I would be in favor of that as opposed to making a vote on it tonight.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Bruce. Mike?
Yeah, I agree with what Bruce just said at the end there too. Everything else I agree with fellow commissioners. We are missing 3 other commissioners tonight, so we are lacking their input as well. I come at this from a place of empathy for both the property owners and the neighbors of future tenants. If you told me my property that someone was gonna, you know, my neighbor was gonna build, you know, a detached, well, not an ADU, but like another 2-family, I would be, you know, upset myself. So I understand, but I understand wanting to utilize your property too to the most of what, you know, the purpose of that property. So I started off firmly against, and I am warm now. I'm in agreement with my commissioners. I also agree that it's probably not affordable. It's, as I said before, with public comment, is it's prime real estate right there, right next to walking. Bike trails are not far away. If I was in my early 20s working at UConn or something, I would definitely want this, and I'm sure a lot of people would too, which will raise the price. So if we could do something like 2-family and reduce it a little bit, that would be great as well. So, you know, it opens it more to younger people.
2-bedroom, right?
Yeah, two men. Yeah, that's what I meant. Thank you, Bruce. But yeah, I think it's definitely changed a lot. My perception with the data you've provided, Shannon and Garrett as well. Thank you. And that's what I say.
There's one in every group. I might be that one on this one where I feel a little different. I'm much closer today than I was. And maybe if we continue it, I'll get closer. And I'm not, I mean, I know why I'm not a huge fan of it. And some of it I think is based on my history with the commission and seeing us doing a lot of things already to get us more affordable housing, ADUs, and a lot of the developments that we've approved and so on and so forth. That maybe I'm just thinking for myself and those neighbors that have been mentioned, like, are we going too fast? Like too fast for the town to absorb what we're trying to do. So I'm not expecting that to sway anybody. That's just where I'm at right now. I'm, like I said, much closer. I think today was an excellent conversation, and I appreciate some of the creative ideas, particularly that Bruce started us with. But if I were forced to vote now, I would probably vote against, just for perspective. So we probably have more work to do. Do we continue discussing, Shannon? I'm trying to figure out next steps
So
here.
we can leave the hearing open. We grant ourselves our own continuance and extension of time, so that's fine. We can look at modifying the draft to limit to 2 bedrooms. I think we can specify just the one driveway. You take a look at the minimum square that Attorney Gelsky mentioned. And what I did is as you all have been chatting, I flipped to our ADU regulation and perhaps look at including some of those stipulations, that if it's rented or leased, it's gotta be at least for a period of 6 months, so it doesn't start to, we don't end up with this Airbnb nonsense. That the, you know, the size of this secondary dwelling, I don't know if it would be no larger, right? It's gotta be, in my mind, it should be perhaps smaller than the main building that's at the front. But maybe there's room to say that it's no larger than, it's gotta be no larger from a living area standpoint than the home at the front. So that we're not constant, I don't wanna hamstring us either, that whatever, it's a
Right.
smaller, you know, it's already perhaps a diminutive home at the front, and then they wanna put a second, and then it doesn't serve a purpose. Owner occupancy, I think, is something the commission needs to think about. So, the ADU does require, owner occupancy. Obviously, for a true 2, 3, 4 family, owner occupancy is not required. And for a single family, technically, we've got a bunch of single family homes in Farmington that are rented or leased out,
Yeah.
short or long term, and it is not owner occupied. Some of them are owners that live within town. Some are owners that live, I got somebody that's out in California, and that's a delight. So, you know, and that's just some of the things that you inherently deal with. I don't think we are necessarily going, and we haven't historically been plagued with absentee owners. Does it happen? 100%. I think if we are going to consider an owner occupancy, that it doesn't, that perhaps we consider that it could also be a relative of the owner by blood or marriage, so that if it's an owner's daughter, son, niece, nephew, grandson, granddaughter, right, that there's a relative there, right? So there's at least that connection, so that if there are shenanigans, right, there's a personal impact, there's still a personal stake in that property, without it having to be that individual who's, you know, perhaps is expanded on in life and doesn't really want to live in a 2-bedroom home, but wants to provide that opportunity. Right. So, so that's something to think of as this conversation has evolved, and I flip back to the ADU reg, that, you know, that's something to consider. And again, then there's the policing of that. So, which, we've had it, that's how the original accessory dwelling unit was written, is that they had to be related by blood and marriage or domestic service, so. So,
Great idea.
so it's something to be done, policing it can be another matter, but if we've got it in the regulation, it at least gives us some teeth. Policing it can be a challenge at times, right, but we can figure that out as we go, and that's why there's attorneys. That's how our town attorney makes. We keep him busy. So those are some thoughts. So we could take a stab at starting to add that in and blend in some of these elements from the ADU without making it too complicated. I don't want to make it overly complex, but we can leave this. It sounds like there's at least an appetite to continue the conversation as opposed to an absolute no, we want to walk away from this. Am I getting that general sense?
Yes.
That's
Okay.
a fair assessment.
We will persevere.
Can I ask a question? real quick?
Absolutely, 100%.
Because I'm not familiar with the ADU regulations. Does the noise ordinance like get lessened when you're more dense?
Is that?
No, so the noise ordinance of the town isn't in our zoning regulation, it's in the town ordinance.
Okay.
And that is based on zone. And it's residential zone, so you have emitters and receptors. So from an emitter, a residential, business and commercial or industrial zone, and then the receptor, residential, business and industrial zone chart in the town ordinance. And it's decibel, there's day and nighttime acceptable levels, residential to residential, residential to business, residential to industrial, and then all the way through. So you fill out that chart and then it's got maximum decibel readings day and nighttime, depending upon who you are making the noise and who you are next to and that tolerable level. And it's a straight up, it's measured at the property line of the receptor of the receiving property. So that's, it's very perfunctory, if you will. So it doesn't matter. And residential is any residential, multifamily, single family.
Okay. Thank you.
June 9th,
June 9th.
just checking.
June 9th.
Well, that's why I'm checking. I'm checking for two reasons. Shannon knows what's coming up. and
Well, no, June
their
9th, I
time.
think is fine. So we can continue. I think at this point, I did the hiatus at the last meeting because I wasn't going to be here.
Right.
So to have this conversation in the absence of me and leave Garrett to navigate this in totality on his own didn't seem
Yeah.
fair.
Yep.
So no, I think
Okay.
these edits can certainly be done within that time frame. And then we can start to pick and choose stuff from the accessory dwelling unit regulation. And encourage you folks to reread that as
Yeah.
well, to see if you see something that we don't see and you want included, then that's what this is about, right?
Yep.
This is ultimately, it's our regulation. You're the ones that are gonna have to vote on it and we have to enforce it. So if it doesn't work, then it doesn't make any sense.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Matt looks like he's ready for a motion to continue.
No, June 9th
June 9th, because normally it's a Monday.
in the pavilion.
They're in the pavilion.
We're booting you, Dave, to the pavilion now.
Got it. Ms. Blonsky and I already went through all that, but thank you.
Yeah, I don't know how that was decided, but okay.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to continue the application by Town Planning and Zoning Commission for text amendment to the zoning regulations, Article 2, Section 3, to permit two-family dwellings on one lot in the R12 zone with a recommended hearing date of June 9th, 2025.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Very good. Good conversation. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, planners report.
Yes, I've got a few things for you folks. I will try to move through them. So.
May I quickly ask who seconded?
Dave.
Yeah.
There we go.
Will
Uh,
this be
you
in
guys
public
want-
record? Or-
We've got one for the record. It's up to you folks if you want it, or I'll scan it in. Actually, that's fine. Whatever you want to do, Bill, if you want.
Yeah.
So, but I'll get it scanned.
I'm gonna
in.
keep
If you
one
want
if you
it.
don't
keep it.
mind. Just because I live in the village, I'm curious to know, look at all these maps up close.
Thank you.
All my neighbors.
But it'll get scanned in and added into to the record so that we've got it for reference. Bill, thank you for taking the time to do that.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, planners report items. First up, our friends on Farm Spring Road, so the south end of town, where the Marriott had been. Now we've got our 15 Farm Springs at the end of Farm Springs Avenue, and it's been converted to apartments. The front building is still owned by RT. It had been, well, it was Raytheon. It's been whatever, all the various names that depending upon who buys whom. Currently known as RTX. They have there is a helicopter pad. I can bring this up on the aerial for you. And what they want to do, And this helicopter pad has been there for quite some time. And the parking and the building configuration has been there for quite some time. And now they want to add a steel guide rail. So it's a 3-cable guide rail. This shows this this is a very odd, this is what they have. So it's a crash attenuator. So it's it'll be 3 steel cables, galvanized post anchored in concrete. Galvanized, they're hoping to be able to make this black, the post black. Obviously the cable will be, it is what it is. You're not going to change the color of the cable. So they are looking at putting this on the entire, so where this red line is on the screen is where they intend to run it, the entire length. There will be 2 areas or a couple of areas where there will be not an opening, but a bollard or access. What do they refer to it? 5 removable security bollards in order to access this area. And there's another place, there's more than one place on this. So there post signs, secured area, signs secured to propose railing, active landing zone for their helicopter landing. I don't know if they intend to start to use this more than they have been. It has been reviewed with FAA. I don't have the FAA letter with respect to their review. There's security bollards here. Like I said, they've got them in a handful of spaces around this perimeter. We've got a sanitary sewer line that comes through, and obviously then just access to the helipad for people coming and going. So this is.
So what's the purpose of this year?
So it's because the parking comes right up to this, the parking spaces head in. And again, this is how this has been for years. So I don't know if it's new FAA requirements. So, and this is the landing and takeoff zone. There's signs, there's even signs here on Finneman Avenue, or Finneman Road, excuse me. But yeah, so that's the helipad, but there's, obviously it's not as large a landing and takeoff as it is for an airplane. But there is a zone as they're starting to descend and ascend that needs to remain clear. So again, the railing is going to come along this edge of parking, pop up around, kind of follow this property line and then follow this edge of parking. So it's a security measure. It's kind of a mix between, I think, RTX desire to increase and maintain that as a secure area. It could be an insurance requirement from, and then partially too from an FAA standpoint. So with that, unless there is a driving need for the commission to have a site plan and have this appear on new business, there is no change to parking. There's no change to access. It's literally just going to be installing that steel cable or something close to it. They are looking to see if they can find something that meets the security criteria that they're intending for and be a little more aesthetically pleasing. They're not sure they're going to be able to get that. So the best they're going to do is try to get those steel anchors to be black. But you'll still have the cable railing generally isn't too obtrusive in the whole scheme of things. So that's what they're looking to do. So if you're in agreement, I'm going to leave this as a planner's report and not a full site plan and application that's needed.
Sounds like a plan.
Yes.
Well done.
Okay. So we're going to move right along. Next up is a sign application for Middle Woods, which is on Middle Road in Farmington, over by off of South Road and near the health center complex and buildings. And this happens to be a senior care facility. So they want to, they're rebranding. Masonic Care has purchased them or taking over the operations. So they are rebranding and they are replacing the monument sign, they're replacing the sign on the awning, and there's a small directional sign at South and Middle that they're replacing that I didn't even realize had been there, but I checked Google Street View and it's there. So this is the monument sign. The street number is being moved to the top of the sign rather than at the bottom where it had been mounted on the brick mounting face. It's a refacing of the existing sign in existing location. And then on the awning, this had been painted or applied a vinyl application to the awning. Looks like they're going to, for this, perhaps have some brackets and attach it to the frame of the awning. Sizing again, basically the same. This is 10 square feet. Their calculation has this sign at 20 square feet. Anytime I did the math on any of this, I got 15 square feet. So somebody, either that didn't get updated in their chart or somebody's doing math different than I am. So that's
New math.
so, and then this is the directional panel that I mentioned. There's a small directional sign for Holy Family Retreat Center, and they actually do have a panel underneath for Middlewoods, and they're going to change that out to Masonic. So I don't have any issue. It's meeting again, like for like replacement. So if we're good, we'll let them go to building.
Did they already change some of the signs?
Excuse me?
Did they already change some of the signs? I thought I saw Masonic here listed there. I remember being shocked at seeing Masonic here.
Oh, well, that wouldn't be out of the realm of
Wouldn't be the first
possibility.
one.
Yeah,
Right.
Time.
It wouldn't be
my
the
wife
first
used to work
time,
for Masonic here, so anytime we see that, we're like, oh yeah.
So, yeah, that wouldn't be the first time that somebody.
They did. I was gonna say, I thought.
So the last item I have for you is another regulation change.
Come on.
Come on. So, but we're gonna start this one earlier because this one's perhaps even as well. I didn't expect the R12 one to be as complex as it was, obviously. So, let's start there. So Shannon's learned a few things.
Bring it on.
This one I expected to be perhaps a little complex. So we're gonna start this here. In our residential regulation, right at the very top of the regulation when we're talking, I can bring it up. But when we talk at Article 2, use regulations, Section 1 is residential, our R80, 40, 30 reg. And it sets all our permitted and special permit uses for our residential zones. And most of the other residential zones in R20, 12, and 9 refer back to this. So this has the bulk of the permitted uses for our residential zones in Farmington. There are some nuances as you go down the line. So as part of the uses permitted in a residential zone under accessory uses in buildings, and we know about our accessory uses in swimming pools and sheds and all those other satellite dishes and solar panels and all the fun things that we deal with. Part of that regulation refers to parking or storage of no more than one commercial motor vehicle of not more than 1.5 ton capacity and or designed to have no more than 4 wheels. For the purpose of this section, commercial motor vehicles shall include those vehicles having commercial or combination plates. And this regulation shall apply to all land within residential zones. And then it goes on to reference Article 4, Section 9 that has the swimming pools. This regulation is not an ideal regulation for us to be enforcing. It is a notable challenge on multiple fronts. This regulation I did figure out this evening as I was poking around at a multitude of things before the meeting, came into play in 1998. So in the 88. In the 87 regulations, it was not in there. In the 88 regs, it is. So it came in sometime during that time frame. I have not gone back and searched the origin as of yet, but intend to do so. But what we have now is perhaps the I don't know if there's been changes with DMV as to how they register trucks, and they now are, more of them are combination plates, and depending upon weight classifications. We have more families with multiple trucks, right? And so depending if you got an F-150, you've got a combination plate or whatever, and sometimes it's gross vehicle weight. The 1.5 ton nomenclature really isn't used anymore. So that's what's up here, because we're trying to figure out, and it used to align with the carrying capacity. The 1/2 ton was 1,000 pounds, 3/4 ton was 1,500 pounds, right? 1 ton was 2,000 pounds. That's not it anymore. And then it differs all over the place. So it's to a certain extent an outdated nomenclature. And the inclusion of the combination plates is really being problematic. So this is, I just grabbed this this evening. This is from Kelly Blue Book, trying an explanation on 1/2 ton, 3/4 ton, 1 ton, blah, blah. This is not something that I do all the time. But it used to align with the capacity, and that's no longer the case. Each of these classifications represents different payloads. And then you come into what is a 1/2 ton. So again, 1/2 ton is 1,000 pounds, but I've got an F-150 that's the maximum payload is 2,400, but a Nissan Titan, the maximum 1,700. It's all over the place. And then the higher up you go, the worse it gets. So a 1 ton truck, we're now into the 350 series. What we're commonly used to now is the 350 series, and we're anywhere from 7,200 to 8,000 pounds. What we'd like to try to do is shift this to a gross vehicle weight. We'd like to, I would like to simplify it, and I don't know, I think in the intent of simplifying it, we may end up having to expand definitions. Garrett took a stab at it. I didn't like it. And that's not, Garrett took what, Garrett, I went from 4 sentences to, as he said, almost 2 pages. And I don't know if we are going to get to something that can be put back into a 1 paragraph thing. And that may be part of the problem of us trying to enforce this, is that they're trying to take something complex, put it in 1 paragraph, and it doesn't belong there. It might need to be a page or page and a half, kind of how we peel the onion on our ADU regulation. But we want to try to shift to, I think, get combination plates out of this. We need to start to understand that a little more. Go to gross vehicle weight, maybe use some of this new terminology with whether it's a 3 series or 4 series, or if there's other classifications. Garrett found another reference that talks about classifications of vehicles, like a 1 through 8. We just need to see if that ties to like a FHWA or DOT standard for those classifications, so that it's locked into something. Preferably, I'd like to lock it into something that's not a commercial nomenclature. That 3 series, like that like it's F-150 or that equivalent, right? I'd like to get it to be to a regulated nomenclature, whether it's DMV, FHWA, or DOT, and set a gross vehicle weight that's a known, and that gross vehicle weight is the fully loaded weight of the vehicle. I'm also not thrilled with the 4 wheels, because there are pickup trucks that have dualies, the 2 wheels at the back if you're carrying a camper or whatever. And there's people that that's their home vehicle. That's, what mom or dad drives, and that's what they're using.
Yeah.
And they're allowed one, but then if they have another pickup truck, if son or daughter has a pickup truck and it's got a combination plate, technically they're not supposed to be in it, right? And I'm like, and we're getting complaints on this. The reason this is being brought to you is we are getting complaints on this because, or it's an antique, but because it's a larger vehicle, it's an antique truck, it still has to have a combination plate, and so that's getting kicked out. And this has become it's a frustrating conversation for us. It's frustrating for the owners. So we are going to start to, we would like to change this. So if you're in agreement, we've got more homework to do on our end to start to get to something that's usable for you folks. But I think we've hit this enough at staff level, and it kind of ebbs a little bit. We went, okay, and something pops up, and then we're getting inundated again with questions on truck size and no, we don't want tractor trailers parked in our residential zones. We don't want, Amazon delivery, full-size Amazon delivery trucks parked there on a regular basis either. But I think with more people working from home and having different job classifications, and it is a farming community, I think this needs to be reworked to better serve what we're seeing and have a little more reasonable tolerance without being a nuisance, a neighborhood nuisance. So that's where we are with that.
Will this open up the camper RV world?
No, so camper RV portal, so that's separate. Camper camper RV trailers, etc. So those will still, they go to the accessory structure.
Okay.
Or accessory regulation, and it falls in there under an Article 4, and those still have to be behind the rear of the house. But as part of that discussion, we'll need to try to decide if you're at if you have 3 F-350s, are we leaving them all at the front? At some point, we're going to say, okay, two is okay, but as you start to get to more than that, then they have to be parked behind the rear wall of the home, or they have to be in a detached garage. So there's a couple of layers on this. Like I said, I wasn't thrilled with 2 pages, but I don't think we're going to end up with. I don't think this can be accomplished in five sentences. So we're going to have to define a few things on what we're considering a commercial vehicle, and then go from there.
That's a tough one. Back in '88, a truck was a work vehicle.
Right.
Now every household I know of has at least one, Silverado.
And it's all extended cabs, and it's
not a work truck.
No, it's
Yeah, I can't wait to find out the reason, what would happen, the story, the backstory.
For how that came in. I'll see
Yeah.
if I can find it. So
Yeah, it'd be
I'll
interesting.
do that research next. And
Is it aesthetics that we're
the
talking
landscape
about?
We is going to dig into that. We're going to go through the files and see if we can find Jeff Ollendorf's notes on it, if there's any agenda review or any of the historic data.
What about large SUVs? They're still just as big as
Why are you making this more complicated?
So,
like a
but I
Grand
don't
Wagoneer.
think
Because I think
a combination or a commercial plate.
Okay.
So that's
Ah.
they go into a separate classification.
Sprinter range or a separate classification. That's part of the reason that we've got it. Which again, some people do commercial, some people do the transport, camper, and that kind of camper regulation. So it's kind of
Stuff one.
We need to start to, it perhaps still won't be perfect, but I need to get better than where we are.
Yeah,
I need to
more
start to
perfect
get
than
a
it is.
little more parameters around, because at the 1.5 ton and 4 wheels and combo and commercial plate, it's free for all at the moment. And I'm tired of having that. And I said, look, they're using it for personal purposes. It's not clearly not being used for commercial. I'm not regulating it. So then the person that calls gets annoyed because I'm not issuing a violation for something that's clearly being used for personal purposes.
Doesn't say Joe's Roofing and has,
Right.
heating.
Right. And that's, you get that too. So somebody's bringing their commercial truck home because they're a contractor and it's parked in the driveway. And again, if it's not loaded up with landscaping equipment and the trailer's hanging out into the road, so it's, we gotta get a few parameters on this. Tighter parameters, so.
Well, that'll be fun.
That'll be fun.
Commission states good luck.
Excuse me?
The commission states good luck.
Thank you.
Right.
Well,
Get the
we're
one
gonna
about
try.
Maybe more for
Right.
Garrett. I don't know.
Yeah,
Trucks
really.
and
Yeah, well,
different types of plates.
You get a lot of complaints about
No.
this?
Yes, we do.
Sounds like
So
it.
that's the problem is that we are getting
Yeah.
complaints about there's so-and-so has too many vehicles and they're combination vehicles and they're not supposed to be on the property. And
That's what it was.
so-and-so has this and it's that. And so, yes, we are getting
Oh.
complaints. Sometimes it's associated with a contractor business or a landscaping business. But if it's 1 or 2 trucks,
Mm,
I'm kind of hard pressed to be finding fault with that, and which is tough with the way that's specifically written.
And does it talk about like time limit in terms of like if you got somebody working on your house and needs all those vehicles there?
Oh, if there's a building permit, that's different. So if it's a
Right.
building permit, that's a whole different thing. If it's active construction, so that's a
Gotcha.
whole different, then yeah, no. Right.
Wow.
Right. This is just somebody's, this is their vehicles. And it's,
There's people that all they have is trucks.
Right.
Every vehicle in their their driveway is a truck.
yes.
They get their kid a truck
Right.
and they say, now you gotta get a car.
So, yes, thankfully it's not widespread complaints, but enough that it is,
Taking up your time.
yes, and warranting this conversation.
You don't want bad regs on the books either, so.
Well, and I think it perhaps needs to be pulled into,
Yeah.
right? It's perhaps served its time.
But we instead have the town do an ordinance?
Yeah, that's probably, that's not gonna go that way, probably.
That's not
gonna
gonna simplify anything. Yeah,
We'll take it off of them.
yeah, true.
Does our food truck complicate things that we just passed?
No,
Anyone been there?
oh, yeah,
It's-
a few of us have it, yep, yep.
My husband was all psyched and realized he went on a Friday and.
Yeah,
it's
that's
there.
only Tuesday to Thursday, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you gotta follow on Facebook to see when they're there and not, and this time of year, so they were doing it more in the winter. This time of year,
They're
he's all
gone.
over the place.
Yeah.
Sure.
So.
I ran
but-
into him recently. He said, business is okay. I'm not retiring anytime soon, but business is okay. So none of us are retiring anytime soon. So
Mm.
No,
all good.
no, but- Okay, that's all I've got for you is that intro. And Garrett, if you've got anything else you want to add to this conversation with the man,
Smart,
Smart.
not at this time.
smart man.
Anybody have anything for Shannon?
I have something for Lance. Put Lance on the spot. Were you able to follow up with that?
Did follow up and trying to figure out if it is truly on town property. It looks like it is.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'll have that conversation with them. about
I think I might have found hogweed.
hogweed.
So I called TPC. I didn't know who to call.
Hogweed?
Yeah, it's giant hog.
It's very invasive and.
It
Is that
can
the
burn.
nasty, that's
Like
the
poison
really
ivy, but it
nasty
gives you
stuff.
Skin burns and
Yeah.
lesions.
Wow.
It
Okay.
looks like
It's really-
cat's parsnip. Cat's
Wild,
no.
wild parsnip.
Yeah, wild parsnips. Yeah, parsnip.
It's one of the
It's in the
most
carrot family.
conversations we've
But
had previously, I think.
across from Tungus Mead Park, there's a plant that's like 5 feet tall, and that's typical of the hogsweed by running water. So I was concerned. People riding their bikes.
So on across from Tungus, so on Meadow
Yeah, on Meadow, like where that dirt
or Red Oak, I guess.
pull in is, right across, like adjacent to it by telephone pole. Yeah. It's like as tall as me, or maybe a little short.
Hmm.
So that's why I'm putting lights. Just,
No, and I went over yesterday just to kind of like, because you gave me where it was, so I wanted to see it for myself. So, yep, we're following up on it. So thank you.
thank you. And is that the right thing to do if you see like a crazy plan? Call you guys?
You probably, yeah, call us, because
Gotta start
we'll
somewhere
have
anyway.
to try to confirm what it is, and then, if it's in the right of way, we can take care of it. If it's on private property.
Might be the farm's property.
Does Deep know about it?
I think it might be.
Yeah,
It's on Meadow?
Yeah. I'm
so
not-
Red Meadow, or yeah, Red, I
Right
think I
after
just Red Oak.
Oh,
Yeah, it's an invasive coming up our way, so
Oh.
gotta keep your eyes out for it. Likes wet water. It likes wet areas.
be ready to go.
Thank you, Len.
Shannon, should we look?
So Access Drive, right,
Yeah.
Tungus,
Mhm.
so right in here.
Yeah, probably at the yellow line closest to your mouse, maybe. Or Lance got it, maybe.
The property line go. I was like literally right here.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, all right.
And you'll see it. It's the tallest plant around,
okay.
but don't touch it.
Just look at
Or
it from
east
afar.
Mac Groton.
Yeah, look out it drive
bad.
by.
Okay,
Shannon, so should we say anything about this?
I have pictures. If you want to see?
oh, yeah, I guess so, yeah. You want me,
I
you?
mean, either way, so Roja's moving,
Oh,
so we weren't sure if she was gonna, this would have been her last meeting, so
Right.
last meeting was her last
this
meeting.
meeting. Ah,
So just
she made a quiet exit.
more of an FYI than anything else, we'll wait and see who gets.
Correct,
Okay.
so town council's aware, so they have vacancy, it'll show up on the next town council meeting, and then we'll have to wait for an appointment.
Yep.
So moving forward, because I'm pretty sure that her resignation letter had today as the last, because I was uncertain whether she was gonna attend. So, but for a vacancy, we cannot seat an alternate for a vacancy. Alternates get seated for absences, not vacancies.
Okay.
So vacant is vacant. So just as an FYI, we've been down this.
She's reminding me, so I don't mess it up.
We've
next
had
meeting.
this, well, I'm gonna have to try to remember as well.
You're gonna have to remind me again too,
will.
yeah.
So every
I always
meeting,
forget about that.
every meeting.
So, but a vacancy is vacant,
No.
and you cannot seat an
You can't
alternate.
Oh,
appoint
you can't.
We've
Oh,
had
I'm
a-
sorry.
a
a
legal
client.
I
opinion
understand
on
what you're
this
saying.
from, Bob
So we'll be 5 commissioners. for the time
Great, so
being.
moving forward,
So
great,
back to
it's
your
five
question.
commissioners
5, 6 votes. right.
until we get somebody seated.
Yeah.
It's from the side.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's making its way. up.
Okay.
All right, approve the minutes.
Who else?
Motion to approve the minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the May 12, 2025 Town Plan and Zoning Commission meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
I think I have to abstain.
Meeting
because of their-
adjourned.
Oh,